All right. Hi, World War II wargaming community. Hope you're doing well today. And we have another Let's Play. We're continuing off this semi-tutorial series that I've made. Maybe that's what I should call this, is semi-tutorial. But it's a Let's Play. And I am playing Eurofront, Columbia Games. We're in the month of April 1942. We started our 1941 scenario. And we're going to continue off from where we've left off. So this is now the second series I've made with this game, and I think it's going so far so good. I think we've had some pretty interesting operations. Nothing too unbalanced this playthrough. I haven't seen any single side completely collapse just yet. So the game is still active, and what I hope is a game that is relatively a close game, but I do presume that one side will win. Maybe it's a draw. You know, this game does a lot to give us those sort of conditions with regards to, you know, whether or not those winning conditions are a draw or you name it. So I'm going to go ahead and get my rule book organized, because we definitely need that rule book just by our side as we play this game. This game is very rule heavy, and like I said before, yeah, this is a pretty good game. If you want to play against me, just let me know, and I'm more than happy to set up a game, Discord channel, that kind of thing, and then we can do the play by email. And other than that, let's jump in. I'm going to go ahead and start these files. I do feel pretty confident that at some point someone is going to watch these videos. I'm just not exactly sure when. It could be months from now. So it makes sense that, I'm going to try to keep that Discord up and running. But I understand if no one necessarily comes play, at least not right now. I think as I get more views, hopefully we can increase the popularity of this game, sometime in the near future. Hopefully by the end of this playthrough, I can actually play with an actual person. I think that would definitely spice up the game, because it would at least add the fog of war element. Because obviously playing solo here, I'm trying my best to keep it being a fog of war, but you get the point, you get the idea. So anyways, we're gonna start the file. I'm going to go ahead and do the month of April now. And we're going to start with production. And I'm just going to open up the production. You can see here that April is mud on the Eastern Front. It's going to be guaranteed mud. And then on the Western Front, it's still dry. So, the Western Front has just so much better weather than on the Eastern Front. In fact, come to think of it, in a hypothetical battle of France, Germany could have launched an offensive against France as early as March of 1940, which to me is really interesting. I'm not really sure how strong their units would be, but I'm quite certain that the German offensive took place essentially as soon as reasonably ready for the German army. But I don't know, I would have been really curious to know if they could have launched an offensive operation sooner. Because my analyses with the Battle of France is that despite the success that they had, it wasn't enough to give them the advantage they needed to defeat the Soviets. Whatever successes they achieved in France were not sufficient to defeat the Soviet Union and the Soviet army. But from a kind of historical, geopolitical perspective, it was the rapid success of France in 1940 was what gave the Wehrmacht the confidence. This included the Nazi regime and its respective military, the confidence to actually go for an invasion of the Soviet Union. And I think, we obviously have hindsight 2020, 2023 to be exact, but I do think that a lot of other nations suspected the Soviet Union would have not been able to survive a German invasion as they did. And the secret to the Soviet success was a number of things, but the overall summary was the fact that the Soviets had a very powerful reserve system, and their reserves were in abundant numbers. The only challenge that they had throughout the war, like every other army, was the logistics, actually being able to supply, both equip and supply their forces, and provide them the actual volume of, the actual quantities of supplies needed to sustain this essentially very modern, very expensive war. I mean, relative to the time, you had tanks, you had all these new industries, tanks, aircraft, probably being the biggest two, artillery, naval industries, the list goes on. And so the Soviet Union had to manage all those basic war industries against the Wehrmacht, which had a very powerful industry of its own. But neither one was as strong as the United States' industry. So World War II, for that reason, is just a super in-depth war. And so this game does a really good job, I think, at just showing you the European theater side of things. It would be really nice, though, if this game did have a Pacific kind of a expansion. Maybe something to consider. But essentially do something in the level of detail as this game does. I have heard of other good Pacific games, but the problem, at least from my perspective, I have never played them, so I can't say too much on them. But from what I understand, the games are of much greater scale, which would make sense given that the Pacific Theater is just a much physically larger theater when you include just the vast amounts of seas and oceans you have to cross and all these islands in which all these battles took place. The maps were just much larger. So anyways, I get ahead of myself. I digress. Let's get into this game. We're going to go ahead and now that it's mud and the Axis have the strategic initiative everywhere, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the Allied production, and I'm going to start their production first. And this is pretty much how you do it when you play by email against an opponent. And so, yeah, we're going to start with the Allied production. I'll start with the British, whose production on the Western Front is going to be 17 production points. We did transfer over, or save over rather, the production from March. So this particular turn, we have 34 production. And what I'm going to go ahead and spend that 34 on is 20 on the beachhead marker, which is extremely important. We need that beachhead marker pretty much by the end of the turn, because presumably the Germans are launching some sort of offensive here in the south. That leaves me with, 14. That leaves me with 14 production points left. And I think the best thing to spend them on is our ground units stationed in Cherbourg. And Cherbourg, if I pronounce that right. And so I'm going to spend 6 on this mech unit, 4 on this infantry unit. That actually leaves me with 4 left over. And I wish I had another unit that I could focus on. I say we build up, I say we build up another infantry. So basically, the British Expeditionary Force decided to come back into France as early as 1942, despite being kicked out back in 1940, which is really interesting. So the British logistics situation is very tenuous. We only have 1 active HQ. I don't even have enough production points right now on this month to build up the HQs because I spent them all on essentially the Navy. So the idea is that we're going to siege Cherbourg. We're going to survive the German onslaught for as long as possible for this month, for the month of April, basically. I think that's as long as we can hold out. But by the end of the month, I expect to be able to pull out in one piece. So we're going to see if this is even going to work. We'll see. I can tell you this much. I really wish I had a little bit more production points right now that I could use to spend. In fact, come to think of it, I think I can give the British at least 5 more production points from the Mediterranean front. That still wouldn't be enough to build another HQ, which is exactly what we need right now. So I can either leave the mech under strength, which is certainly one option. If I cancel this mech build and I cancel this infantry build, then I can actually build up this HQ to a level 2. And I'm actually going to go ahead and do that because we may actually have to withdraw by the end of the month. And I need a full strength HQ to be able to do that. It's the only feasible way, I think. So in hindsight, this mech unit just was not strong enough. Was not strong enough. I thought it would. I thought I'd be able to reinforce it once it was in the territory, but it really wasn't strong enough. And unfortunately, we already lost the whole British Corps in the campaign. So, that's the other problem. So, yeah, not a great situation for the British, but I think we should just prepare to withdraw if we can, which means I probably don't even need this beachhead marker altogether. I'm gonna go ahead and build it anyways, but unless the German attacks go super poorly, I just don't see us being able to hold Cherbourg, quite frankly. We just don't have enough combat power. So we lost the campaign, but it was an experiment. The whole point was to see if we could even penetrate the German lines and test the German defenses. And the German defenses, we were able to breach, but seems like we haven't been able to hold out very long. I was hoping to hold out for maybe at least until to set up this beachhead marker, but I frankly don't think we'll be able to. And that's fine. Yeah. So I spent 4. So yeah, I spent 30, 1 on HQ, 1 on the beachhead, the last 4 on just this unit. And I wish I had 10 more. If I had only 10 more production, I could have built up a reserve and built up our mech units in Cherbourg, but fortunately it is not to be. So that's that. That's as good as it's going to get for the British. We can switch over to the Mediterranean front and roll our 25 dice that we have on the Mediterranean front. Go ahead and do that. And they get 10. 10 plus 9 is 19. So yeah, we're going to get 19 production. Just going to change all these to 0 so I don't confuse myself. And that way I know that the production wasn't used over from the last turn. That's just the easiest way to keep track of the units. Don't need this one. Okay, there you go. All right, that's good. So we have 90 production in the Mediterranean front. That's actually really convenient. I'm gonna go ahead and build up our Mediterranean. I guess it's our Mediterranean theater HQ, and then I'm gonna go ahead and build up this units, our mech units, and that's gonna be 19. It's a very easy build. So yeah, I mean, although the British took devastating losses at Derna, they lost all their units. I mean, and it's going to take a while before we build up our units again. I'm going to be frank and say that, these 2 corps are going to take a while to build up. But right now, for whatever reason, I'm just not concerned about a German attack on Tobruk. I just don't think they're going to be able to take Tobruk soon enough so that, it's going to take them a few months to neutralize Tobruk. Probably not until like June at the earliest. And then, even then, it may not be till the end of 1942 before the Axis are in a good position to attack Alexandria. And keep in mind that by the time that happens, we probably will be able to get the United States in the war and have them invade Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia. So that's just something to point out. And I also think by the time that happens, our British, you probably don't see it because I'm in the way. But here on the bottom left corner of the screen, I wonder if I can make the screen a little smaller. But this unit over here, this 30th Armored Corps, it's going to be able to move from the Cape of Good Horn and make its way to Alexandria. So I'm just not too worried about the British. I think with those 3 corps, we're going to be able to establish a very strong defense of Alexandria against whatever the Axis throw at us. But other than that, other than Tobruk, the road to Alexandria is open. Then we can switch over to the Soviet production. And we are now in April. Increase the Finnish production as well. And we're going to go ahead and focus on the Soviets. Their production is still at 56 because they relieved the siege of Leningrad. I'm going to go ahead and probably start focusing on HQs this turn. Since it's a mud turn, I'm going to spend 30 production points on just the HQs alone. And then you know what? I'm actually going to spend it also on Stavka. So that's 40. That leaves me with 16 production points left over. And of those 16, I kind of want to try to get as many infantry at full strength as soon as possible. That's like that's the number one priority I have right now. Let's get my infantry at full strength. But also they need more support units. So, you know, any cavalry units that I can build up, you know, any armored units that I can build up, those units definitely matter as well. So I'll go ahead and build up this. What is this? 21st Army. So we had 16, now we're down to 14. I can build up this cavalry, this mech. That's another 6. So we're now at 8 production points left for the Soviets. And with that 8, I don't even know what I want to spend it on, frankly. Pretty much all the infantry that we have, almost all of them are at full strength, either that or they're at level 2. Maybe the average is about level 2 right now, but it's pretty good if you ask me. Any new units that I want to build up? I do. I mean, the short answer is absolutely yes, but I'm just not sure which ones yet. But I also know that we're also gaining Soviet reinforcements. Excuse me. I have some juice here. And yeah, because it's April, we actually do receive the first and the second Soviet tank armies. These are going to be really important for the Soviets because I think they're fundamentally going to be the strategic weapon that the Soviets can use to counter the German Panzer Corps, or at least be able to strike back against the German army in the same ferocity as the Panzer Corps. So as we saw in this winter campaign, I didn't really focus on any Soviet armor. I was able to attack a few areas with at least one Soviet armored corps, right? The 12th Armored Corps, the 10th Armored Corps, the 7th Armored Corps. I think that one defended. And then, but the real source of firepower for the Soviet army during the winter campaign came, I think, predominantly from the Soviet shock armies, which all do have double fire, but they're still infantry and they move pretty slowly. And then, of course, the infantry themselves, which I've had in pretty good numbers. I've at the very least matched the combat power levels of the German counterparts. We had a lot of infantry that were able to match with the German formations, basically. And so hopefully you're able to get a sense of that. Again, I don't have any data to back that up. That's kind of just my intuition of it. But some point in the future, if we can program this game, then we can actually track that data. And how cool would it be to really look at the stats or I don't even know what kind of data it would be, but some sort of, we'll say casualty trend, but at least for a war game. So it's not going to be like the real data, the real historical data. It's just going to be the data for the game. But I still think it would be really interesting. And we can kind of go into that analysis with the presumption that that this game is basically we'll call it a simulator of World War II. Maybe not a perfect simulator. We'll call it a model. It certainly is a model of World War II. And it's a playable model. That's the most interesting part of war games that I don't think war games get enough credit, is that they are genuine attempts at creating models of historical events, namely military events. And so there's a vast plethora of different types of war games. I know that many other war games have more card-based systems, and they just have very, very fundamentally different mechanics, not to mention that some of those war games, they focus on different scales of the war. So some war games focus on the tactical level, some games focus on the, we'll say, operational strategic level, as this game. Some games may focus on the entire global conflict, like a game such as, I would probably say Axis and Allies, probably one of the more classic, simple models of War II. But you can tell that there's a wide range of models. There's others that have 1,000 moves per year. right? That are these intricate, pretty much simulator or turn-based games. So there's a huge ocean of content that's already been made when it comes to the subject. I'm just curious to actually try to track more of that data, if at all possible. I think that'd be really cool to just to study, because data is very powerful, and what better way to look at it than through these really cool quote unquote simulator games. And so I'm just throwing that out there. But as I clear my voice here. Mic check, mic check. But with all that said, I know that for 1942, and this was what happened at the Battle of Stalingrad, or really the second winter of 1942. I'll talk about this later on. But really throughout the entire year of 1942, the Soviets tried even harder, I would argue, than they did in 1941 to launch just these multi-wave assaults of offensives. The only difference was that they launched them in lower frequency than they did in 1941, number one. And number two, their attacks tended to be better organized. They tended to also, I think, have a greater concentration of firepower. I don't know if they necessarily had more units, because in 1941 you had all these Soviet tankettes, which are like mini tanks, the T-26, maybe some BT series, but I'm pretty sure the T-26 was like the workhorse of the Soviet Army throughout all of 1941. Despite it being out of production, I think by the time the invasion began, or during the invasion it was put out of production, it was still the main tank the Soviets had throughout 1941. I'm pretty certain of that. Although you still have the occasional KV and T-34, there may be one more tank Soviet type that I'm forgetting about. But as we roll into 1942, what we see is a very different type of Soviet army, one that's using more cavalry formations, and one that's using the Soviet medium T-34 in greater numbers. But they're still a novice army. The Germans still have somewhat better weapon types. They have better, at least, cannons. And so the Soviets still have a number of things to work on before they become the Soviet juggernaut that we know of by 1943, 1944. And so I find all this just really interesting. So what I'm trying to say in simple terms is that I'm really excited right now to deploy the Soviet tank armies. The real question is so where to use them. So that's just my overall kind of, we'll call it my philosophical take on the Soviet tank armies, how they were implemented, what was their primary role, how they were intended to be used, and ultimately how did the Soviet army use them in the war, versus how you can use them in this game. Because I've played this game a number of times to know that if you try to play this game and rush these tank armies into your campaign throughout 1942, more often than not, I find them getting destroyed a little too soon. So I'd rather use them as a deep strategic reserve, just as deep as the Soviet infantry reserves were in 1941, but save them. In fact, try to avoid using them at all, only until they're at full strength can I use them. And I think that's just a prerequisite, is that you just wait until these formations become full strength, or at least have them in conjunction with full strength reserve infantry formations or other formation types before I actually deploy them. So I do not intend to use them to even defend against German offensive operations throughout summer 1942. I'm going to wait for them to be active in the winter of 1942. But the other thing to point out is that they're also pretty expensive. So if you look at this game, the cost of these Soviet armored units is 4 steps, right? It costs 4 steps. That's the same cost as a German infantry on the Eastern Front. They also cost 4. So as far as tit for tat, the Soviet tank armies are much more expensive units as well. So there is an incentive fundamentally built into the game to get players to try to use these units a little bit more cautiously than they would use the other units. Because take, for example, the Soviet shock army, shock armies, plural, they cost only 3 production points. Right here, it's right here. Shock armies cost 3 production points. And that 3 ultimately makes it so that you basically have a double fire unit against the German single fire units, yet they still are more cost effective. There's an incentive to use the Soviet shock armies against the German infantry because in any equal exchange, the Soviets have a slight advantage. Likewise, the Soviet shock armies, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. The Soviet tank armies, they have the same cost as the German units, so the incentive there is a little harder to reach. But despite that, they have the mobility advantage, so they're really good to break through. They're very good breakthrough weapons. So I'm going to leave it at that. That's all I'm going to say for the Soviets. We still have to finish the Soviet production, right? I've spent 40 production points on ground units. I think I spent another, that left me with 16, right? I spent, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I believe I have 8 more with the Soviets. 8 more production points left. Right, I have 8 more, and the question is what to spend those units on. I have no idea. I would probably want to build up 2 infantry. I kind of want to build up this Soviet naval unit again, quite frankly. I just don't know where I would use it for any naval operations. I don't have any HQs in Sevastopol or Rostov. So I could potentially use them for some sort of an amphibious invasion on the southern flank of the Ukraine, or Ukraine, as it would be pronounced today. Either way, I could do that. That's one option. Or, I don't know. I don't really see... we could try to attack this industrial basin, but I just don't see us being able to exploit that position at all because we just don't have enough logistics. We can barely hold on to the front line as it is. The only reason why we've been able to hold out is because of the bad weather, right? And the Axis winter paralysis. But now those effects are going to go away starting on the next month, in the month of May. So I know that the Germans are going to be able to be a much more dangerous army throughout 1942. So it's important that the Soviets have a good way to counter. I think the best investment is to focus on units that can pretty much counter the German mobility, basically the German blitzkrieg throughout summer 1942. I spoke about how the shock armies have the double fire and the cost advantage. I spoke about how the armored units have the mobility advantage. The mech is a nice hybrid of both because it has the mobility like the armor, but it has the cost effectiveness of the shock armies. So I'm going to go ahead and build one of those. The only downside that the Soviet mech units have is that they don't have double fire during any attack. And so that's a fundamental problem, but that's not a concern for us for the summer campaign because the strategic priority is to defend anyways. So because we're defending, we actually don't have to worry about this unit. We don't have to worry about this unit's offensive, lack of advantages for offensive operations. We don't have to worry about that because it's fundamentally intended to be used as a defensive tool. And so the way I'm going to deploy this unit is I'm going to build it up to full strength. And at level 4, one of these first guard, I'm going to call them, I guess we're going to call this, I'm not sure what they call this. I think we're going to call it a Soviet mech army. I'm going to call it a Soviet mech army. It's not a tank army. Technically, the Soviets didn't have mech armies, but I'm going to call that just for simplicity's sake. These are going to be mech corps, the level 3s. Just like the tank corps are or the level 3 tank corps are called corps, but the level 4 formations are going to be called armies because they're simply bigger. And so I'm going to call this a Soviet mech corps. Actually, maybe we'll just leave it as a Soviet mech corps cluster. Mech corps group would probably be the more accurate term. We'll call it a Soviet mech corps group. So it's actually a cluster of Soviet mech corps. But technically, it's not an army. Is actually just a bunch of support elements that can be added onto a primary Soviet army, and that's the idea. So this formation will work in tandem with, say, the Soviet 20th Army, and it will act as the mech corps support for that army. And these formations at full strength, I mean, they are going to be tough. They're going to be really tough. It's going to make it hard for the Germans to be able to break through against those units. So that's going to be our priority. I still have, that costs 6 production points. I still have 2 left. And I think the only thing I'm going to build up is probably this infantry here. I mean, yeah, our infantry are looking pretty good in the center. They're all at full strength. Here in the south, they're all kind of under strength, but I'm not too concerned about that. Around here in Leningrad, you know what? I'll go ahead and build up this unit at full strength just because we have extra units there. So that's it. That's going to be the Soviet production for this turn. Pretty good turn if you ask me for production. I'm going to go ahead and switch over now to the Axis production. And we'll go ahead and do that. And so what do I want to do for the Axis production? Let's figure this out. Keep in mind that even though it's mud, it's still technically winter. And so the Germans still suffer from this extra production cost. It's going to be there all the way until June of 1942, which is a bummer. So we'll go ahead and build OKH by 1. That's 15 production points. We're now down from 69. It's going to be going down to 54 production points. With that 54, we can build up a lot of ground units, a frick ton of ground units. But I think the other thing I got to think about is, if I get clear weather on the next turn, do I want to launch an offensive operation? Now, here's the thing about launching offensive operations with the German side, is that even in 1942, even though you may be able to launch good counteroffensives, the reality is that the actual strength of your German army on the Eastern Front, chances are, it's not the same strength as it was during the summer of 1941. And again, I could pull out the data and make a comparison of that, but I'm going to save that for a future video. But for this video, I just want to point out that these operations we can pull off. We're going to have clear weather. We may be able to do a full out blitzkrieg with it. But I just want to make the point that, if we do too many blitzes in May, by the time we get to June of 1942, we may not actually have enough combat power built up for a general full out summer 1942 offensive, as we saw historically, like with Case Blue. And so, this is the time to kind of really decide if we really want to prioritize an offensive, because I'll tell you now, trying to launch an offensive against all the Soviet targets is really hard to do when the Germans just simply don't have enough units to pull it off. So it's the combined expense of focusing on building units while also trying to pay for the logistics, aka essentially spending 50 production points each month on all your HQs in order to sustain sustain the momentum as we had sustained during Operation Barbarossa in 1941, right? So if you do the math, if we spend 50 production points per turn from here on out, technically it wouldn't start until June of 1942. That's only going to leave us with about what is that, 19 production points? Maybe we'll get a little bit more. I would actually argue that it may be sustainable. It actually may be sustainable. So I don't know. I got to figure out what my plan of action there is, but I know that the priority right now, the most convenient priority is just to rebuild the German army. Forget about the HQs. Focus on the combat power of all the German units. And if I can build them all up to full strength, we're going to be in better shape than the German army was historically. Because the fundamental problem, according to the research I saw, was that the German army simply didn't have enough ground units at full strength. And in this game, I'll tell you now that the average of German units on the Eastern Front are at level 3 combat power for the summer 1942 campaign. But for this campaign, I mean, and I don't know if I can even show you some numbers to kind of reinforce the point, because I really want to reinforce this point. I don't want you all to just take my word for it. I think the easiest way is for me to look at the actual setup sheets, and maybe we can do a little bit of math here, and I can kind of give you a sense. So take, for example, if we look at the infantry, on the Eastern Front for summer 1942, you can see that there are about 29, we'll say 30 infantry, and about 88 CV. We'll just round it up to 2 to make it 90. So 90 divided by 30, that's going to give you 3. That's only going to give you 3, on average, 3 combat value or 3 steps per infantry unit for the Axis. But if we look at the 1941 scenario, you can see that we have less infantry, but we have about the same combat value, which is really interesting. So the average, if you have less units, about 5 less units, 5 or 6 less units, I don't know what the average actually breaks down to. I can do the math here on my phone. I can just do it here on the computer to show you all. But it'd be 90 divided by 24, right? No, not times 24. Divided by 24. Oh, not 34. 24. And then the average goes up substantially. It goes up to 3.75. Right? So from an average of 3 in summer 1942 to from an average of 3.75 in the summer of 1941, I think that makes the point that I have, which is that most of the German units for the summer 1942 campaign are simply under strength. Most of the units, like by the time they're at level 3, yes, they can participate in an offensive campaign, but they can't sustain themselves for long periods of combat. They can participate in maybe 1 or 2 rounds of battle, but as soon as they sustain 1 hit, they're going to be reduced to level 2, and by the time they're at level 2, you really need to repair them before they reach the level 1. Because by the time they're level 1, I mean, they're basically useless for any offensive operations. Forget about it. So I find all that really fascinating. So right now, you can see that the average of the German units is at level 4 for the infantry. So we're looking pretty good. Right now, I think, at least on the southern front, we're looking good. And as far as the mech corps are concerned, or for the armored corps rather, I have 3 armored corps right now, right, for the Ukrainian front. I have also 2 mech corps. Although these mech corps, I don't think they're very helpful for attacking, they are going to be helpful for maybe breakthrough operations because they have the speed advantage. So I would argue that right now our units in the south are with 1 Panzer Corps, technically maybe, or 1 Panzer Group, 1 very large Panzer Group, maybe 2 at best, 1.5 Panzer Group. I'm going to consider these mech units as kind of like Kampfgruppen, but the idea is that we have about just enough firepower to achieve at least 1 strategic breakthrough somewhere along the front. And I think if we're really lucky, we may be able to pull off 2. And the idea is with 2 breakthroughs, we could, in theory, try to do some sort of strategic encirclement. And I think the best one right now would maybe try to encircle the Soviet units east of Kharkov and Stalino, since they're out in the open. And then if we can wipe out those Soviet formations, I think the road to Stalingrad might be wide open. Right? Or the Soviets are going to have to spring into action. They're going to have to redeploy their army in a really dramatic way in order to deny the Germans the ability to take Stalingrad. And I think just for the sake of entertainment, I think we're going to try to go for Stalingrad, Voronezh. I think the real target should be as south as possible. We should try to go for Maikop, try to go for Tbilisi, Batumi, and really, what I think the fundamental objective should be to try to get Turkey to join the Axis. And the only way we can do that is if we dislodge these Soviet units away from the Turkish border. And so I think we have a very good chance of doing that. Let me look at the diplomacy rules. Okay, and so we're back now. My camera did stop working there for a moment. And so, I mean, hopefully you all are just enjoying my lovely voice. But I was just trying to say thank you for your patience and tuning in and learning. Being an open-minded learner, super important to have, I would say, these days. It seems like that's a fundamental thing that makes you human, perhaps, is the willingness to learn new things. So anyways, I can show you all, I kind of painted an overall summer 1942 scenario. The reason why I'm just showing that is that I do think it's really important to plan out at least some general strategy before you actually execute your plan of action. It helps. It definitely helps. It definitely simplifies things. And if you want to have an exciting campaign like we're going to have in the summer of 1942, it helps to be really ambitious with your strategic plans, but you also got to make sure that you actually have enough units to pull it off. So definitely more room for analyses in World War II in general. But I do think just looking at the diplomatic, logical incentives, I do think there's an incentive to get Turkey into the war. If we look at the Turkish army, we get another theater HQ, and then we're also going to receive a bunch of Turkish units. Most of these units are pretty under strength, but the most notable ones, I think, are 3 Turkish armies that look pretty good, right? And then also, I do think the Turkish production it looks like it's another 4 production points, I believe. From what I see here, I would expect it only to be 3. Oh, also, yeah. No, we would get 5 more production points for the Axis. So really, it's not a substantial amount of production. But I think the other advantage that we have if Turkey joins the war is that our chances of securing Egypt, perhaps having a victory in the Middle East, may be possible for the Axis. And I think we can go all out. Maybe if we can break through at Alexandria, even as the Allies are invading Morocco and Algeria, let's say, and perhaps even France, we can just push further east, try to gain more industrial resources, because there is an incentive to secure all this oil all the way out in Iraq. If we can secure Iraq, we gain even more production points. And then we're looking at having the possibility of at least a better German strategic situation on the war. I'll tell you now, I'm not too worried about losing France, but I am concerned about the Allies breaking out of France and entering Germany itself, right? France is very vulnerable. Or if we lose France against the West, we're kind of in deep trouble. But there is an incentive to get Turkey in the war. I do think that that's what Germany needs to focus on right now, is doing everything in their power to get Turkey into the war. So we're going to try to do a deep southern drive in the Soviet Union, while also trying to push for the Africa Corps. But I have no idea the actual feasibility of these operations. I'm just, I guess, trying to be ambitious here, right? So just pointing that out. But anyways, we're going to continue on with the German production. I still think there's 54 production, right? I did Western Poland. I'm just trying to make sure I didn't build up any other units. I don't think I've spent anything on the Axis production just yet. I spent it on the OKH, but we still have 54 production. I'm going to go ahead and build up this armored unit. That's going to bring us down to, 48 production points. Or excuse me, from 54 to 46, rather. Definitely build up this mech unit. So we're now at 40. I can build up these 2 infantry. That's going to bring me down from 40 down to 32. I can build up another armored unit. So from 32, we're now down to 24. And then with 24, I actually don't have any more German units that I can build up on the Eastern Front, which is a complete and total shocker. We're actually kind of running low on German units. I can actually go ahead and, so I said 24, right? I think I can go ahead and build up a destroyed German corps in Warsaw. So that's going to bring me down to 18. And if I really wanted to, I could actually go ahead and build up a German fortress unit on the Eastern Front. Here it is, the dead pile. I could actually go ahead and build that unit on the Eastern Front. And the question is well, what would be the pro of doing something like that? I think the pro would be that we'd be able to withdraw, reallocate a number of German units wherever this unit decides to linger. And I think the best place to put this unit is Smolensk, if I can. If we can take Smolensk, then fortify it, and then proceed to build this fortress unit throughout the 42 campaign, I think it's going to make us have a number of extra units, maybe the equivalent of a German Panzer Corps, or excuse me, Panzer Army, Panzer Group, an extra Panzer Group that we can relieve, and then maybe shift over and try to use it to drive further in the south. Because we're going to need as many units as we can in the south. Right now, we only have one Panzer Corps in the south, one Panzer Group, 1.5, if you will, with those 2 mech units. I think there's another equivalent of probably 2 Panzer Groups, I would say, here in the central front. And then we've got the 4th Panzer Group here up in the north supporting Leningrad. And I still want to take Leningrad. So I think the idea would be that we can try to have a victory here in Smolensk, if at all possible, sooner rather than later. We're going to start the southern campaign in June 1942. I'm going to wait a little while before we launch the southern campaign, but I'm going to try to really focus on Smolensk then, right, for the time being. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and build this unit. It's going to be a really interesting strategy. Try to achieve a victory Smolensk. Our priority is not Moscow, but we want to hold on to Smolensk. It's going to have some... It's just a good place to defend the central part of the front. It's the best place. We can also defend from Bryansk or try to take Bryansk, but you know we've got the forest terrain in the north to protect that flank and the swamps as well. We have river crossings to be protected over here. So it's the best place to defend our German army with the smallest front. It's the easiest place to defend against any Soviet attacks, while we then have a big deep dive across the southern sector where it's all open terrain, right? The southern steppe, the Russian steppe is open terrain. That's where the panzers are supposed to thrive, but the distances are really far. So we just want to be logistically as well prepared as possible for that. So that's going to cost 15 production points, because I think the Fortress unit, 15 cadre. So we only have 3 left. And that 3, I don't know what to spend it on, actually. I can't even build up a militia unit because they're still technically on the Western Front. Which is a total bummer. I don't know if I even did that setup correctly, quite frankly. If I look at the summer 1941 setup, I'm pretty sure... If I look at summer 1941, where is that? 36. 1941, here it is. If I look at it, yeah, I mean, if I look at the Eastern Front, there are no static units on the Eastern Front. I thought they would be, but they're not. They were on the Western Front. And these are the Italian. Oh, I guess they were. 2 static infantry. No, they were on the Western Front. The satellite static were on the Western Front, that's right. Those are those units there. So yeah, 3 production points left over. I'd rather not toss them out. I'd rather just not toss them out, but I literally don't have any other German unit to build up right now. I could also build up the Finnish right now. I'm going to go ahead and build up 9 for them. Put up the 4th Corps there. But yeah, I mean, with 3 left, I wonder if what if I canceled another unit? Again, it's just super hard to say. Maybe I could have... I can cancel 12. If I cancel 12, yeah, I can cancel an armored unit. And then I can cancel an infantry buy. And that actually gives me, that's going to give me 12. That gives me 15 now. And then I'm going to go ahead and spend that 15 on, yeah, you betcha, Army Group North. There you go. All right, that's a better buy. I just don't want to waste any production. So I think we want to make sure that we're being as efficient as possible there with our production. But yeah, the Germans are building up their HQs steadily but surely. We still have a lot more to build up, of course. So yeah, that's pretty good. I kind of wish our infantry didn't look so under strength there, but I don't think there's any other option right now. All right, we can move on to the other fronts. Let's do the Mediterranean front for the Axis. They are not going to get, yeah, they're not getting any production this month, at least according to what I have here, they're not. Yeah, I don't think they are. Right, yeah, they're not. So I'm going to go ahead and roll 4 dice. They get 5, they get 11 for this month. And I think I'm going to pass on this turn for production in the Mediterranean front for the Axis. So they'll get that in May of 1942. So yeah, the production is very slow for the Axis. That's really going to be what slows them down. Unless I want to make an attack against Tobruk on this turn, it is possible. It is possible. So if I look at the Western Front production, I have 27. I'm going to build up OKW. I'm going to go ahead and build up one of these HQs as well. So that's already 7. That's already 20. That leaves me with 7. And I'm thinking, what should I build with that? You know what? I'm actually gonna, yeah, we're actually gonna attack Tobruk on this turn, believe it or not. I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna do it. So I'm gonna focus on OKW on the Western Front. So that's gonna bring us up to 27, or from 27 down to 17. Or no, I'm actually not gonna build OKW is what I'm trying to say. We're not gonna build them up. And then I'm gonna instead focus on our ground units. So I'm building up this HQ. That's gonna cost 10. We have 17 left. Let's build up this armor. Now we have 9 left. And then with that 9, let's go ahead and build up this airborne unit. That leaves us with only 3. I'm just realizing that we don't have enough HQs to really launch an effective attack. And because Cherbourg has the forest terrain, so that is a problem. That is a bummer. So you know what? We're gonna keep. I wonder we may even keep this armored unit in reserve. So hold on. I'm gonna spend 10. That's 16. Alright, I'm spending 16 just now. I think we do need another HQ. I think the first wave attacks, the way I'm going to destroy the British formation, the British garrison here, is that we're not just going to blitz our way in. We're going to have to launch a methodical attack because I just don't have enough firepower to launch one and done assault. I could send a Panzer Corps in there, but I think chances are it's going to get destroyed all by itself against the British defense. So I don't want to attack with the Panzer divisions first. I want to send stronger units in first. They're going to hold out for a little while, and then I'm going to methodically make my way so that once I have enough units stacked up in Cherbourg, then I go for the blitz. But I need to have a few initial attacks there first. So I'm going to focus on building up these 2 HQs, Army Group E and Army Group G. And then this month, I may even just use OKW for these attacks. No. We're gonna launch one attack with OKW. We're gonna attack with this airborne unit. That's right. So yeah, 16. So I did spend my 26 production on the Western Front. So we're gonna discard one Mediterranean Front production. So we're gonna change that. We're not gonna save it for next month. I'm actually gonna spend it right now, and the way I'm gonna spend it is I'm going to spend it on the Africa Corps. Okay? Or this Africa HQ, rather. I'm going to spend it on them. And then you're going to see very shortly what I intend to do to make progress in this sector. I have the intention of pinning down Tobruk as soon as possible. I don't intend on taking Tobruk immediately, although as much as I would want to, I don't think we're going to be able to, quite frankly. But we're gonna launch a very hefty attack on it nonetheless. And then I'm going to try to get more units just inching their way to Egypt. But, I'm beginning to realize the Egyptian strategy only is going to work if our Africa core is at full strength. And we probably need this HQ to be at full strength as well. We're dealing with a lot of just everything demands logistics. Everything demands logistics. And unfortunately, not everybody can actually cover the cost. No way. So these units can't cover the cost for sure. They're not able to cover the cost of both attacking in France and attacking in Libya, Egypt, while at the same time being able to sustain all the logistics on the Eastern Front. Again, would be so cool if we could quantify this information. So anyways, I am, by the way, working on a project. I guess I will announce it in this video. But I am trying to reverse engineer the deep life state map. I'm trying to learn JavaScript. I've talked about this before. But if you want to join in on the project, you're welcome to join the Discord. So, just let me know and we'll go from there. But I figured I'd make a little announcement there. So anyways, other things that to focus on. So I'm trying to tackle multiple fronts with the German army, and everything is expensive. But I'm hoping that we could. I don't think we're going to be able to take Cherbourg on this month, because look at these HQs. They're just at level 1. I just don't think it's advisable for the German army to keep using level 1 HQs. I don't want to keep doing that. So I'm going to try to save one for this month. Next month, though, I'm going to try to build it up to a level 2. Then I'll feel a lot more confident with my units in this sector. But that means that we're going to have to be, again, just very methodical with our advances here. While over here, we're trying to be methodical everywhere, basically, while at the same time not exasperate our forces. And I still think, even with all this organization that we're doing, even if we took Tobruk on this month, our actual motorized formations still may not be strong enough to take Alexandria, right? I mean, the British have 2 units. They could probably transfer in more units. We're going to have to encircle Alexandria if we have any hopes of taking it. So we'll see. We'll see how the campaign goes. Maybe there's a chance, maybe not. That's it for the Axis. Let's go ahead and start the turn, right? All this talking about production. We're going to go ahead and start this turn. We're going to do the dice rolls for the Eastern Front Storm. And I can go here, look at the player aid. That's a roll of 7. So it's going to be the East Baltic Basin here. No rolls for the Western Front. That's clear weather. Okay. We're going to start our operations. Why not start with France? I'm going to go ahead and activate Army Group E. And what I'm going to have it do is deploy it over here in St. Lo. And then I'm going to go ahead and get this first unit to advance into, to advance over there, basically. And then we'll make sure all the other sectors are well protected for any, any sneaky British operation. Yeah, we're going to leave it at that. And then I'm also going to go ahead and activate OKW. So I can show you all a new rule, a rule that we haven't seen yet in this playthrough. But the rule is called cross command. And basically, you know, some HQs, you've seen it actually a little bit. That's not true, you have seen it a little bit. But you can basically command other HQs from other fronts, but at half efficiency from anywhere. So let me show you how it works. It's going to be in the HQ section in the game. That's near the combat section, about a third down. It's before production though. So the production is section 10, supplies section 10, hex control section 8, combat 7, battles section 7, retreats, unit movement is section 6, and then we have HQs section 5. And so here it is. It's a section, I guess 5.721. It's very specific, but it calls for cross command. And here it is. The Axis OKW and Allied Supreme HQs can simultaneously command units in the Mediterranean front or Northern front or vice versa. They command normally in the front they occupy and half efficiency in the other front. So that basically means that if I have this OKW in the Western front, it can command either the Northern front or the Mediterranean front at half efficiency. So every one supreme move in either the Mediterranean front or Northern front it would cost 2 supreme moves on the Western front. Okay, hopefully that's making good sense. And there are some flex points in which you can command basically both fronts with that rule in effect. Otherwise, you can only pick one front. So I'm actually going to use OKW. It's not going to command on the Western front, although we will use its air support. It does have a range of 4, right? So Cherbourg is in range. But we're going to use it to command units over here. Okay, and the move I'm going to do for the Mediterranean front is that I'm going to activate the Africa Corps, level 3 right now, and I'm going to have it move. I'm going to basically move these 2 Italian militia units into Tobruk. And the idea, hopefully the idea is pretty obvious. Actually, you know what? I'm actually going to use it to only move 1 unit. Yeah, I'm actually going to only use it to move 1 unit into Tobruk. Then I'm going to go ahead and use the other supreme move, or the other pair of supreme moves, and move the 10th Army from Tripoli to Benghazi. Okay, so 2 supreme moves, right? The militia units, by the way, can only move with supreme moves. They can't actually participate. They can't actually be commanded by a field HQ. They can only be moved around with supreme moves. And also fortress units can only move around with supreme moves. But we're going to move 1 group there. And then I have all these other units. And I'm going to use most of these other units to actually attack Tobruk as well. And I can have them attack with a flank like that. And then I can put this 20th Corps right there to protect the eastern flank of Tobruk. But now I have 3 units stacked up on Tobruk. And I'm going all out on Tobruk. I'm launching an attack on Tobruk. I have the Africa Corps at full strength. That's our main source of firepower. But we're also going to have an airstrike there that's also level 3. Okay, and then we also have a militia unit, which is going to be basically the rear guard unit that I leave behind with the intention of sieging Tobruk. There may not be a need to actually take Tobruk. As long as we can siege it, our supply lines should be just safe enough, and then we can run over to Alexandria. So hopefully this strategy is making sense. I'm trying to attack Tobruk, having a successful attack on Tobruk. Maybe we break through, but if we don't, that's no problem. I'll be able to make some progress, and I can at least siege the port for the rest of the campaign as we try to advance on Alexandria. So that's the idea. And then on the Eastern Front, I don't think I'm going to do any moves on this turn because it is mud. Yes, I do have weak units right now located here at Denault, right? But the Soviets are going to have to attack with against our double defense. So I feel pretty confident that we can at least survive a Soviet attack. The Soviet units are not very strong themselves. And then what else? Nothing else on the Eastern Front to really report. So let's go ahead and do these battles. Let's start with the Battle of Tobruk. I'm very excited. Had we had the 10th Army, this attack would have been way more successful by now, but unfortunately we don't. So let's see how it goes. Against the British 10th Corps, our airstrikes score 1 hit because the British have double defense. It is a minor fortress, already off to a good start. The British score no hits, amazing. Now we can roll the Africa Corps. It has quadruple fire. It scores 3 hits. This mech unit has double fire attacking because we're dealing with the Mediterranean front. The last game I showed those rules. They score yet another. So we just scored 2 more hits. And then the militia units, if they score any hits, they don't. But we score 2 more hits, okay? A little bit of payback. The British now at Tobruk are at their breaking point. They cannot hold on to Tobruk another turn. So the Rommel just came in and totally smashed Tobruk and did so pretty spectacularly. That was a textbook. That's what I would call a textbook Axis offensive. It truly was. It really was textbook. Very well done by the Axis. I'm quite impressed. So the other thing to point out, we will secure. I think we're going to take Tobruk. We can use Tobruk as a base to build the Africa Corps up to full strength, and then we're almost in range of Alexandria. Hopefully by June. If we can be at Alexandria by June, it's going to throw the British off guard big time. Then we're also going to make this attack on Cherbourg. We're basically fighting the British on 2 fronts right now. They do have combat support. We only have 1 unit moving up. It's an infantry, but it does have a little bit of air support. No guarantees of success. But yeah, the British have a lot of strong defense. Our airstrike rolls. They score 1 hit. The British roll their defense. They score 1 hit as well. The Axis roll 3. No hits. Okay. Nice. So the Axis attack was successful. No, we didn't break through, but we at least pinned down the British. And then we're going to finish this turn by deactivating our units. No blitz phase is going to happen. Notice that OKH right now, OKW is under strength. So just keep that in mind. So, we can't, this unit's under strength, but this Army Group G, hopefully we can do a nice blitz on the next turn, which I'm looking forward to. But here's the other thing to point out about Cherbourg. Cherbourg right now is under siege supplies. And as the rules show, the rulebook shows, siege supplies, which I think was section 10, right? Siege supplies here says it can only support 1 unit at cadre strength, meaning that these British units they're not actually like out of supplies. In a way, they kind of are. I won't put the out of supply marker. Instead, I'm going to put a disrupted marker on them. I know this disrupted marker, they don't actually have an out of supply marker. It's kind of a hybrid, but these units are somewhat hybrid of both no supply and disrupted, but they're technically not out of supplies. I mean, they are out of supplies actually. So they're going to take some production loss right now, meaning that the British defense just got that much weaker. So we're going to switch over now. Oh, I actually I just realized I never even started the log file. Ay caramba. Okay, well that's a bummer. I didn't show these movement turns, but I'm glad I caught that. So I'm going to lose part of the file, but that's no problem. If I go back to the British, I mean, I could recreate everything that just happened. So, and I probably would want to ideally, but I have this video. So the video is probably the evidence I actually have to record that turn. But we can actually do the British supply loss. These 2 units are going to lose some supplies, and now the British strength is now down to, they're only at 3 divisions left. The equivalent of 3 divisions left at Cherbourg. So yes, the British could, in theory, activate their beachhead, but I don't think it's a good idea right now. I think we should withdraw. We should retreat while we can, because we just don't have enough units. So that's a major problem. And so let me look up all these rules with regards to the sea moves. I want to see what are the rules pertaining to command range. That's what I'm trying to read up on right now. Sea interdiction, two-wave invasions, sea evacuations. It says only one unit can be evacuated per movement phase. Oh, and then they're talking about paratrooper jobs, so we don't have to worry about that. What about sea assaults, invasion command? I'm pretty sure we can command the entire sea basin with this HQ. The problem is that we won't have combat support. Each invasion HQ commands the movement of one invading unit and no other movement. Invading HQs can launch airstrikes and can provide combat supports to battles within command range if they do not mobilize. Each invasion HQ commands the movement of one invading unit. They must begin in a friendly port. Invasion combat support can only apply to units within command range. It tells you how the command range is traceable. And then command range can extend through enemy controlled seas and through sea portion of enemy controlled coastal hexes. And then the command range is doubled under naval supremacy. Talks about blitz invasion movements, opposed invasions, sea assaults. And then I want to know about the blitz long range invasions, two-wave invasions, sea evacuations. Sea evacuations are also subject to opposed invasion limits. So I'm pretty sure we can command the units. We just won't be able to provide combat support, which is not a concern for our operation. So these units I don't think are defined by their range. I mean, they are somewhat. But one movement is across a sea area. That's the thing I'm checking for. I want to know more about the actual sea assaults. Talks about the nature of sea assaults and blitz evasions. So yeah, I don't see anything that really tells you exactly. Oh, here's the invasion movement. The invading unit is moved from the invasion port to the target coastal hex. Normal invading units must invade coastal hexes within the same area, though long-range invasions can cross two seas. Okay, I think that's a rule that I was looking for. So yeah, one movement per sea basin. So right now it's the English Channel. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to activate this HQ. We're going to blitz, and then this is going to be a invasion HQ. So we're both blitzing and invading, and we're going to do a sea invasion in reverse. And what we're going to do is we're going to get these British units the heck out of shore. They did their best, but that's everything we could do. And the good news is that this mech unit technically is faster at withdrawing than this airborne unit. So I'm pretty sure it will be immune to the actual pursuit fire. And then if retreating, the evacuation unit takes pursuit fire based on a speed of 1, 2 for amphibious units. Okay, so actually it's better for us to leave the amphibious unit behind because it is going to be somehow faster. Nice. I don't think we need the beachhead in order to do that. So we're actually going to pull back this unit, this mech unit first. That's the first move. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and deactivate. Go ahead and do the next phase. And then we're going to pull this unit out. Bring it back to Portsmouth. Nice. And no pursuit fire by the Axis since they don't have units that are fast enough. Cool. So nice withdrawal, but the Axis did win that battle fair and square for sure. But overall, very interesting campaign. At least kept the I'm pretty sure it kept the Axis somewhat busy on the Western Front, but maybe it wasn't enough to really change the outcome of the war. It did cost the British quite a lot of logistics, but they did gain a lot of experience. But we only lost one British corps, which is not the heaviest loss in the world. And now we can kind of switch gears, focus back on North Africa pretty much. And so we're actually going to make a move in North Africa as well. The situation for the British just got a little bit more vulnerable, if you ask me. I think the best course of action for us right now is to maybe pull out of Tobruk. Try to do the same thing that we just did. Try to pull out of Tobruk. I don't know though if these. I don't think this theater HQ can actually do invasions. Let's find out. So we're gonna go back to HQs, Supreme HQs. I want to look for theater HQs. They're like mini Supreme HQs. And it says theater HQs cannot blitz, support combat, or command pair drops or see invasions. That's a bummer. So that basically means that this unit, this 10th Army, is stuck in Tobruk. There's nothing we can do to really pull it out, unfortunately. That's a bummer. So I'm going to go ahead and activate the Mediterranean HQ. And what I'm going to do is, I think we're actually going to redeploy it somewhere else. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and reinforce with this mech unit to Alexandria. And then I guess I'll deactivate this HQ. Since the stacking limits in the Mediterranean front are 3, that's all I can do for now. And then I guess I'll move it. I can leave it there, or maybe I'll move it to the Suez Canal. Yeah, so it was an activation, and then it was a march by 2 to the Suez. Or I could put it in Port Said. It's a little vulnerable there, but at least we have this rail junction protected. Yeah, and then let me read up on the 1941 scenario rules pertaining to any of the mandates, Mediterranean mandates, because there was something that happened out there. If we read up on 1941 borders, neutrals, Britain. Okay, he says here, Iraq has been defeated after the uprising. Uprising still possible in Syria and Persia. And then Axis MR is possible in Palestine and Iraq. I think those are the revolts if they're not garrisoned by Allied units. I see. Okay, so the Iraqis already tried to revolt. That failed. But Syria and Persia can still do their revolutions or their I guess their mandates. And if we look at the diplomatic events for the Axis, we read up on the ME rule, Mid-East uprisings. The conditions are, if Turkey becomes Axis control, that's one option. Chances are it's very high. Or count the Axis ports in Libya and major ports in Libya and Egypt. Less than or equal to count. So right now, the Axis have 2 major ports in Libya. So we could try to roll to get Syria to join right now, actually. And if we were to take Alexandria, our odds go up to a 50% chance that the Syrians join on the side of the Axis. And if they do, I mean, we have an extra unit from Syria. Let's just make sure we see what unit that is. Pro-Axis neutrals. Here it is in Syria. We actually gain 2 more units that would join Syria. Very interesting. So the British actually never dealt with the French in Syria. Huh. Historically, they did. Historically, they did. I'm pretty sure the British, yeah, I guess they should have it. They should have invaded Syria. We did not. I just want to read up on the declaration of war rules pertaining to the Allies, because I'm pretty sure they couldn't declare war. So this is where this game starts getting very complex, right? You guys just all these different mechanics that all combine. But I think for wargaming, it's pretty normal. But if you ask me, I think it's quite complicated. This is overwhelming even for me. But you know, I've played this game enough to be pretty familiar with it, and I'm a big fan of World War II. So understanding the wars is just a big thing that I find enjoyment doing. But let's see here. I just want to learn about declaration of war. It's unit restriction, British forces, belligerents, garrisons, expeditions. No, so it's not in this section. It's probably in section 16, which is war and peace. Here it is, declaration of war. Chamberlain rule says the Allies cannot declare war before winter 39. With the following exceptions, Allied declaration of war upon any neutral constitutes betrayal. If they declare war on Norway, they can do that. So I don't know what the status of Syria really is. I'm pretty sure the British would have needed, you know, I guess what happened was that the Axis were the ones that declared war on the British. That may be of what happened. Now, thankfully, we do have this table here. That's historical diplomatic events. But I want to see if there's anything about Syria in 1941. Yeah, the British, in the June 1941, the Axis diplomatic event, they did the Mideast uprising of Syria. So the Axis were the ones that did the uprising, not the British. And the British just shut down that uprising. And it's weird that they did it in 1941. I guess they felt confident that they were going to secure Egypt. I will tell you now, the current scenario that I saw, I did not feel confident we would take 1941, take Alexandria. Now I do. Now I think we can. So that was a blunder by the Axis to actually get Syria. Syria was defeated almost immediately. Man. So yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Another thing that I want to check for is the capital. What is the capital of Syria? Because I'm pretty sure that's the rule that will tell you how how to defeat Syria. And I guess the British they just needed to secure Damascus, and then all those nations would have surrendered, right? There is somewhere in the rule book that tells you the capital of all the nations. I just don't know where it is. This is, it's hard to tell you about Germany. There's a section that's about major units. And it's in here somewhere. Sea supplies, declaration of war, war and peace, map edge areas, talks about victory. I guess it's talking about all the major nations, France. Oops, I skipped ahead. And then what else? 1939 scenarios. Talks about the fronts. On the front section. So Union. Minor powers. What about major powers? Huh. I know it's in here somewhere. Oh yeah, minor power labels. Here it is. Oh, that wasn't it actually. There was somewhere that gave you the capital of every nation in this conflict. Somehow knowing that would be really helpful. Oh yeah, here we go. It was in the beginning of the game. So all these nations, but I'm not seeing anything for Syria. So that's a bummer. Unless the diplomatic events show you that. Iraq and Syria. Yeah, you would think there would have information on these two nations. Persia, we have information on Persia, but I don't see any information on Iraq neither. So I'm just trying to understand then, how was a nation like Iraq defeated if we don't even know the capital of the country? That's very strange. I'm presuming Damascus is the capital of Syria, because it's the only major city I see there. So this is a question, this may be a question I have for the audience, because I'm not really sure. Mideast uprising, Mideast rebellions. Okay, it does. Here I found information. It just wasn't where it should have been in the rule book. But the capital is Damascus, and then for Iraq, it's Baghdad. Okay, got it. All right, that answers that question. So yeah, the British must have taken Damascus then. And then, yeah, there's Baghdad. Okay, cool. So yeah, that's it for the British. And then for the Eastern Front, what do the Soviets want to do? That's a great question. If I were the Soviets, I would probably start preparing as soon as possible for the summer 1942 campaign. And what I really recommend for the Soviets to do right now is presume that the German army is able to launch a good campaign like as soon as possible. I'm even willing to double spend my production on Stavka right now, just so that we can get our units in position as soon as possible. It's the most important thing for the Soviets is to have a very good defensive line. And the way we do that is by making sure our units are just in good positions. So right now, for example, Smolensk is looking pretty good. But like, let's try to pull out some other units. I should be able to pull out this 10th Corps. Pull out both of these armies. Right, there's going to be some combat, some pursuit fire that's going to happen there. So that's 2 strategic moves. I can do another 2 strategic moves in Dano if I want. Situation for the Soviets is actually looking a little bit vulnerable in Dano, quite frankly, because yeah, I mean, all these units are just, we got a lot of units there, but they're just all under strength. So that's a problem. So I'll do 1. I did 2, 3. Did 1, 2, 3. And then I only got 3 more that I gotta do over here. I would go 1, 2. Three like that, I guess. Yeah. So I did 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, 6. Right. Unless there's any other unit I can move around that would be better to put in Kharkov. I don't see any other better. Oh, you know what? No, let's go ahead and put the cavalry unit there. And we have a mobile unit. But ideally, you know what? I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to move this guy here. How about that? So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got one more unit. Let's go ahead and pull back this cavalry unit. Yeah, we'll go like that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's pretty good. It's pretty good if you ask me. No, actually, we'll leave back this unit there. And then I think my last move, we'll leave that guy there too. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 more. One, two, three. 1, 2, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 more. I'm pretty sure I want to just deal with Smolensk if I can. It's probably my best bet. Two more units, huh? One, two, 3, 4. Guess we'll cancel that move. So I did 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go 4, 5, and then one more unit. 6. This guy. 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. So we did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then next turn I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like that. Right. Oh, I see. No, you know what? We're going to cancel this. I did 1, 2. Yeah, we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got one more unit. I guess we'll pull this guy. Guess we can put him here. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And the next turn I go 1, 2, 3, 4. Something like that. Okay. Yeah. So just to count again, that was definitely a pretty complicated set of moves. There's 1. That was a march. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, nice. All right, that's it for Stavka. Oh, you know what? I just realized. I just freaking realized. I'm gonna have to change some of those moves actually, because my HQs are just completely out of position right now. They really are. They really are, and I unfortunately cannot. I won't be able to easily remedy the problem with just moving a bunch of units around like this. Unfortunately, I cannot. So I just realized we're gonna have to change something. We're gonna cancel that withdrawal. And then I think I'm gonna cancel this withdrawal as well. No, we'll try to redraw that guy. So I got one more move. Let's go ahead and get this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's another real move. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I got it. One more move I need to do. One more move I need to do. I'm trying to figure out where to do it or how to do it. We're going to cancel that. And then we're going to go ahead and move this unit via rail as well. Try to move it to the south, I think would be best. Now we'll go 1, 2. Move this guy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's a I don't like that. I'm instead going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Putting the Rostov. Okay, that's much better. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Got it. Yeah, so it is not a great situation for the Soviets, let me tell you now. It is not looking ideal, but we are doing everything we can to get our formations prepared. Fortunately, we won't be able to do any offensive operations on this turn, and probably not until next turn neither. So that was the first fortnight. Holy moly, that was intricate. British withdrawal from Cherbourg, smashing Axis attack on Tobruk, and a Soviet just micro adjustment on the front in the east. Switch over to the next fortnight, and then we'll pretty much wrap up the video here. I think the Axis are going to pass their turn on the Eastern Front. No HQs at full strength, so there's no need to move those units. On the Mediterranean front, we could launch another attack on Tobruk, and I kind of propose that we do. It would definitely make for an interesting turn. Let's go ahead and do that. Or do I wait next month? No, I guess we'll go ahead. It doesn't really matter. I think we're going to go ahead and attack anyways. And then we'll also go ahead. We already succeeded in Cherbourg. Mission accomplished. So that campaign is done. So now I just need to boosten up all these units at full strength and then fortify the Western Front even better than last time. And then we should be in good order. And then the main campaign is going to be Alexandria for sure. The only problem with this Africa Corps is that it's in a bad spot. I don't want to spend production points on it next turn because it is only in road supply. That's going to cost us 20 production points. It's not worth it. I'd rather focus my production on all these other units, especially the Italian unit here, maybe build up these militia units, you name it. But overall, the situation is looking pretty good for the Axis, I have to say. So, we'll focus this attack on Tobruk, do an airstrike. This is the only battle for this turn. Airstrike rolls, no hits. Defenders score no hits. Afrika Korps rolls, 666, plenty. So this unit's eliminated. So we took Tobruk pretty well in the month of April. That was a nice attack without a single loss for the Afrika Korps. Textbook operation. Completely operationally, there were like no casualties for the Axis, but the British got devastated, completely devastated. Amazing. This is pretty much just what happened historically, pretty much. Where the British succeeded in Operation, I think it was Operation Battle Axe. They forced Rommel back. Rommel eventually came back with a revenge and retook Tobruk, and then the British fell back to another area around here, Sidi Barani and Mersa Matruh. Major battle happened there. That's when the British were completely devastated, and then from there they ran back to El Alamein, actually. Right now, though, the British main defense is not even at El Alamein, it's at Alexandria. Maybe we should consider fortifying El Alamein. Maybe that's where we need to focus with the British. Why not? At least we have our flank protected, right? The British can't go around. So maybe the British are being a little too passive right now. They should reinforce, try to buffer the area with more units. I think the British know how vulnerable they are. The British really need an armored corps to arrive. They may not even arrive there in time. So this is really cool. I'm excited to see the race for Alexandria is on as the British try to assemble a new defense while the Axis organize their units elsewhere. So I think a Mideast uprising can occur in Persia or Syria. But what about Palestine? Because Palestine, it can occur in Palestine. It can occur in Palestine only if the British remove their garrison of Palestine, which they may need to do if they want to ensure a good defense of Egypt. And then, of course, there's the possibility of Iraq joining the war. 1 or 2 dice roll. Basically a 30% chance. And that's going to happen if they decide to pull out of Iraq. I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, the reinforcements couldn't even arrive in Egypt in time. But Palestine, very vulnerable right now. Jerusalem, Palestine, I don't know which one to call it, right? But in 1942, it was called Palestine. But there's Jerusalem, right? Eventually, this area would be modern-day Israel. But after the war, I think it was 1947 that occurred. After World War II, of course. Right now, we're doing World War II. So anyways, I'm going to wrap up the video here. This was pretty cool. Definitely impressed by the Axis assault on Tobruk. I think it was a really well done attack. And we saw an Axis success also in Cherbourg. And that was really done well as well. So that's pretty good. We took Cherbourg, and we also took Cherbourg, and we also took Tobruk. So we retook Tobruk technically since it was already part of Libya. But that's a nice fortress. We retook that fortress. The Italians can now use it as their own fortress. Oh, the other thing I forgot to do with the Axis was I meant to have this unit march up, and in hindsight, I just forgot. Oopsie daisies. I was supposed to get that 10th unit to march up. It's a little behind schedule. But lesson learned. But as you can see here, the Axis have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 6 units. I think all these units are going to move best if we use supreme moves from OKW and OKH. So we're going to do that on future turns, but I think the only way we're going to get these units to an accelerated move to Egypt is if we can get some HQ support from the other fronts. That's the only way. So May, June, I think June, we may be able to start attacking Alexandria, which is really cool. So yeah, overall, the Axis are reorganizing themselves. The Eastern Front, the Soviets haven't had any more progress. Nice, good counteroffensives against the British. The Western Front has been taken care of, for now. Now I think the Axis are going to have the initiative for 1942. And the real question is can they sustain their initiative throughout the next winter? Throughout the next winter campaign. So I'm going to end the video here. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed. I will see y'all in the next video. Peace out.